So, yo, like the title of the video says, I started a podcast 2 weeks ago at the age of 34 years old with a budget of $0 and 0 cents. Wait, that's not quite true. Well, we'll get to the money stuff, but I wanted to start making these videos long form to, let you know if you're thinking about doing something similar, what the workload has been, what the pitfalls I've encountered are, what the easy parts are, and just talk about process for a little bit. First, I just want to share my intention, right? Because that's important when you're starting something. It's like, why did you do this? You're like, whoa, very easy to explain that part. I started it because I have been making rap records for 17, 20 years. I'm 34. And I started like really making rap music and like touring when I was like high school, 16, 17. And now I am a TV writer. And for a time I had some money and I was trying to put it into to make it my rap career, blow up. I thought that the only thing in between me and having the career I wanted was like payola or something. It was not. We'll get into that some other time. But I wanted to be clear that my intention, right, was to create a parasocial relationship with motherfuckers that might help me create an audience to warm up their ears for the music, right? When I say I've been doing this for 17 years, I mean, I was making rap music at a time that was very different, where people were talking about, street teams and it was sort of the indie rap heyday, and it was easy to book a tour on MySpace and shit, right? When I transitioned into the Hollywood part of my life, I did that, well, because I am a good narrative writer, and I do love narrative, right? But that was only because my parents were like, you have to go to college for something, and they said they would pay for it, and so I was like, okay, let me go to NYU for dramatic writing. That's the highest thing I can think of. And then once they paid immigrant blood money for me to go to that school, I was like, well, I think I have to, in order to not be a piece of shit, I think I have to at least make the same amount of money. I think basically my thought for myself was, I was like, if they're paying $200,000 for me to go to art school, right, and they came up poor and I got to have middle class resources, then I have to make at least $400,000 using the same degree. So that was my thought coming out of school. But as I meandered off the path of the music shit, I started to be like, oh, fuck. Rap is a young man's sport. Music is a young man's sport. Maybe I'm fucked up for life in this thing. But I know I'm always going to make music, right? And when I started making TV money, one of the things I started pumping money into was the production of the music itself. And that I have no regrets on, because now the music is way, 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 way better, right? I was able to get the sound. I'm not a producer. I'm not like beat maker guy. I wish I was. It's only so many hours in the day. But I learned that you could use other musicians by paying them to like get the thing, basically create using someone else's hand. You pay them a day rate and you go, hey, I want it to go like this. I want it to swell like this. And then I started to make records that sounded like real records, right, to me. And which is to say that, look, for 16 years the records were good, and just to give you a sense, I think I have like 62 songs on Spotify that kind of span that period, and I've made a lot more that like didn't come out, but if you were to ask me 3 years ago the thought that I would have expressed about why the music shit wasn't happening, I would have honestly told you, because the music's not there yet. The records are not undeniable. They were cool, and my pen has always been interesting, but the production was so-so, and it's not even, I don't want to diss the producer, because the producer was my cousin. We ended up having a falling out over some contract shit or whatever. It's not that the music was bad, it just wasn't what spoke to me. It's what spoke to him. And by the way, just to let y'all know, that relationship was a financial decision, right? Because I was paying people for beats that I liked more, right? And then I started paying my cousin for some beats that I liked, when our styles enmeshed. But then at one point I was like, listen, Papi, I didn't have any money anymore, right? I don't think I had any money even then. It was just that I was like, occasionally I could find $300 to pay for a beat. But then once I like was in just all this school, and I didn't really have like I was working at a chocolate factory, you know what I'm saying, and I was a home attendant, and so I didn't have money to pay for beats that I really wanted. It sounds like I feel like a dick saying it like that, but look, I want to be honest with what was going on. So kind of having a monogamous relationship with a producer that was related to me, I was like, well, if you're down to keep making stuff together, we can keep making stuff together. I just can't pay you upfront fees, whatever. So all that to say that when I was able to finally have a budget per song to like get the thing, because again, I'm not a producer like that guy, but I do think that I have music in my head and I know when it sounds like the thing that's, you know, in my head. And so in the past 2 years, when I was really up, I was able to make some records and hire big producers and musicians and all this shit to make the shit sound like Kanye West. And I was like, okay, great. Now the music sounds great. But I put a couple of those records out and it was very clear that I had no idea how to market a record. No idea. There's a song called Florida Man out that I'm really proud of. It's not even on my top. Like, it's, in my opinion, it's my best song. It's not even on the top plate on Spotify. I put out a song called Elephant in the Room. So proud of that joint. That's not on there either. Medusa, that song was kind of the first time I tried to like really put out a big record. And that song has some plays, but it's a couple thousand. And anyone who's a musician knows that like those plays aren't shit. So then those were my experiments on the marketing side, right? And I'm not a big social media person, bro. Like, I am a late adapter. I'm a Luddite. Every time I touch a computer, I feel like it breaks. And I just didn't have a plan. And it was kind of getting to the point where I was like, maybe I should quit this. But I'm never going to stop making the music, right? But I clearly don't have a fucking strategy for how to put it out that works. And by the way, when I say I've tried everything, I've tried everything. Like, when I was up, bro, I had never made more than $16,000 a year. 16, not 60. $16,000 a year. You can't live off that. So, like, my parents were helping me. I got married. My wife was putting me on her health insurance and shit. And, you know, so when I got this big deal at HBO, I was making $400,000. Actually, that was the base salary. I made way more than that. I spent all of it. Some of it on stuff that is going to, you know, keep giving me returns, and some of it, to give you a fucking example, the first day that one of those checks cleared, some guy told me he was a radio promoter, and I was like, and by the way, I didn't have music worth promoting at the time, but I was like, hey, let me try this out. And I gave him $50,000 with no contract. He told me that he had been instrumental in breaking the song Whoop-Dee by CJ, which I love that song. And I was like, hell yeah, here's $50,000. So I was doing shit like that and didn't go anywhere. I had to sue him, but also it cost money to sue people and whatever. So all this to say that I had a rough couple years where I was trying everything and nothing was working. In fact, my wife said to me, Chris, what you're doing is not working, which is such a beautiful, I'm not being sarcastic, like, it's a beautiful thing for a partner to tell you, because it's intimate and it was important, right? And I realized that I was putting my resources in the wrong place, right? So I took a break from, you know, other things I did, and I'll make another video about this because I think it's important to talk about the money shit. I bought bus ads for Medusa, like literal, like on Sunset Boulevard, there was like 4 bus bench ads with my face on it to promote the single. That didn't get no one to stream nothing. But a couple people thought, like, oh, Chris must have signed a deal. No, I didn't. I just called an ad company, you know. I hired publicists. I spent I don't know, $8,000 on publicists. Nothing. I was getting written up in like John and Kate's blog or whatever, and I'm pretty sure like some of the publicists like maybe that's their blog. Not, everyone's nice and whatever, but I was learning how things worked. I hired a social media manager, $3,000 a month. I lost followers. Like, my mom unfollowed me. Not really, but it felt like that, right? So, and I'm going to make, again, I want to talk about this more specifically, but I just want to give you some context for why I started the podcast in the first place, right? Finally, I was taking a break from like spending money on trying to get the music to pop, and I was like, Chris, just focus on for a little bit the music itself. So I got into the lab and I made 8 songs that I was like so proud of, that they were exactly what I wanted. Finished them, mixed, mastered, it's done. I had a little listening party. I started showing the DJs around town, and people were like, yo, these joints are big, really big. And I was like, great, they're not coming out yet, because I don't have a fucking plan. I had to be honest. I was like, look, before, the music was not so good, and I was throwing money at the promotion stuff, and I failed. On the other end, I just, like, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. I really did not. So the smartest thing I did was just focusing on the music itself. But I had to combine the lessons. Lessons have to be cumulative. And, as they say, the lesson presents itself again and again until the student is ready. I was not ready, right? But once I made the album that I wanted to make, then I was like, okay, before you start to put it out again, before you, like, put out, like when I put out Florida Man and it hurt my feelings and no one heard it, I was like, that pain has to be a lesson. And the lesson is that you need a marketing strategy. And marketing strategy means social media. I have like 1,900 followers on Instagram. That ain't rock star shit, bro. That's loser shit. Unless it's you. I only call myself a loser. I don't call anybody else a loser unless they're my enemies, in which case, fuck them. But no. Just to give you an idea of the landscape, right? And the thing is, I know that communication is one of my skills. I know that I have, I don't know, I'm comfortable talking to people, talking to camera. And so the realization I had was, I was like, yo, it might be time to leverage your personality, right? But okay, well, how am I going to do that? And then I was like, well, you listen to a bunch of podcasts. I listen to like 7 hours of podcasts a day. So I was like, maybe start a podcast. And at one point, a couple of friends and I had gotten together and tried to start a podcast. And then afterward, I had to have a very honest conversation with them where I was like, yo, this is going to sound like selfish dick shit, but I just need to be honest. I think if I'm going to put all this time and effort into the thing, it has to be the Chris Gabo Show. Like, literally, the Chris Gabo Show. It can't be called The Dispatch. It can't be called... I didn't want a band name. It had to be a branding exercise for me. And on the strength of our relationship, my homies were like, go with God. Not only go with God, but we will be on the podcast as, guests whenever. I was like, great. So I talked about it in my inner circle for like a year. And honestly, I want to say this, Benny the Butcher has that line where he says, like, if you're a real hustler, there's a lot of information in being broke. That's true. Because if I had had the idea to start the podcast when I had money, I guess it's important to tell you that I had some money, spent it, then we went on strike in Hollywood, and now I'm like, inshallah, in the next couple months, shit'll pick up again. But right now, I'm not incredibly liquid. I'm in debt. During the strike, I put like $60,000 on my fucking Amex, and then paying the shit back. Shit is fucked up over here. You know what I'm saying? But again, I'm kind of grateful. And look, maybe this comes from like a certain spiritual practice or whatever, but I do think that gratitude and perspective is one of my strengths. And it's helped me get through this moment, because I had the realization the other day that I was like, if I had started the podcast when I had money, we will be in Burbank with 3 cameras, and it'd be like go time with the gate. I would have done too much, because my personality makes me do too much, okay? So the fact that I had to start the podcast when I had a budget of 0 was like, cool, let me do as much of it. Let me figure out what I can actually get done just wrangling the resources of my own labor and the free labor that my friends will give me. Shout out Reef Loretto, shout out Sila Reyes, shout out my wife, Safia Hillo, bro, for real. So, I want to tell you what the last 2 weeks have been like. And again, I said budget of $0, but obviously I have an apartment, right? We own it, but there's a mortgage, so that has to be paid because otherwise the bank will take the shit. Man, if I had the money to buy this apartment in cash, that would have been fire. Anyway, so let's be honest, bro. Like, we need to talk about money because I hate it when somebody comes on here and is like, I just did it through hard work. And you're like, isn't your mom like the Lockheed Martin fucking CEO or some shit? So, like, it's important to give context, right? I do have the apartment already. I already had some recording equipment because I am a rapper, so I have some shit, I didn't have cameras, and I knew that I wanted the show to be live. So the first thing my homie told me to get was these OBSBot. They're like the OBSBot Tiny 2, I think. These are AI cameras. So I bought. Well, no, my wife was like, you know what you're gonna get for your birthday? I'm just gonna buy those cameras for you. So she bought 2 of them. That was like a $600 expense, right? It didn't come from me, but again, resources, right? So she was like, basically it was her investment in the Chris Gobbo show. So I got those 2 cameras, and then I have an Apollo Solo. That was my interface. I had an SM58, 2 SM57s. I have this Rode TI microphone, but because it's a condenser, it wasn't gonna work for the podcast shit. I knew a couple things off rip. I knew that I wanted everything to be primarily live, right? And just sort of a reference point, like the primary podcasts I listen to are Joe Budden and the Chapo Trap House guys. 2 very different podcasts for cultural reasons, but let's talk about the technical shit today. Chapo Trap House is audio only, right? I don't know how they grew necessarily. I know how they grew because their point of view is so exciting, right? And they came out during 2016. Actually, the Chapo Trap House show and the Joe Budden show all started both. I've listened to like the first episodes of each. It's really interesting. Obviously, Budden was starting, he was already a superstar, right? But the important lesson for me in all that is that Joe Budden has a video component, right? And I knew off rip that I had to have a video component because I needed a clip to socials. And when I say socials, I mean TikTok, Instagram, YouTube Shorts. This is the first YouTube video that I'm making that's like not like me trying to like produce a video, even though like there will be, I really want to have better video production in the future. But for now, I was like, I do need a video component that I can clip to socials, and I also need a video component for like the main episodes. Now, I want to talk about the hard lessons I've learned with the OBSBot shit. $600 worth of cameras, right? It's been a little bit tricky. There's been, what I wanted was, I was like, I want to have one guest because and the amount of guests is not because I only want one guest. I actually really want to have a big cast show. And in January, I'm going to try to have a big cast show. But currently I was like, I can do 2, right? And right now there's only 2 episodes out on YouTube, episode 1 and episode 3, because those are the only ones where the files didn't fucking like degrade. You know what I'm saying? I was using this software. I was using this OBS software. It's called OBS. A lot of streamers use it. And, my thing, I want everything to be 4K. And I need to get over this perfectionist shit. Even me making this video is me kind of like practicing getting over my perfectionist bullshit. Because, I wanted the video quality to be super, super high. But I couldn't figure out how to like get 2 inputs to record at once on my laptop. So the videos that you'll see when you see episode 3 and you see episode 5, you'll see that essentially it's not like the greatest quality in the world, and it's weirdly has this like anamorphic thing where it's like there's sort of a strip of black on the top and of the bottom, and the reason for that is essentially that in the OBS software I kind of had to like, they give you this option to sort of like size the scene, and so it was like one scene from one camera, one scene from another camera. That's a full, it's supposed to be 4K, but it I don't know actually what the video exact quality is, but it ain't 4K, I'll tell you that much. And I think that actually worked to my benefit because it wasn't very high quality. It recorded all the way through because I learned, and this is the first lesson I learned, which is that fuck the video quality. Get the actual, the quality is in the content. And, you know, my friends are really interesting. The conversations are really interesting. So the fact that I got it at all, great, right? But for some reason after that, when I started recording and then I got the proprietary OBSBot software, shit started going haywire, you know? And it was really sad because I did this episode with my homegirl, Sila, and it was beautiful. The audio only is gorgeous. But the video just started lagging in the middle, and I might be able to still like push the sound to make some of it work so I can get some clips from it, but that was very demoralizing. So thing number one I learned was that eventually I'm gonna have, if I really do want to do the video format thing, it's video production. It's fucking TV, bro. It ain't easy. You know what I'm saying? And I'm still trying to learn how to use these cameras. I'm not abandoning them, but I live in LA. Like I kind of rather, I have this, I'm gonna put some money together so that when we get back in January, I can hire someone, you know, if there's someone I could pay $50 an hour, I have a homie who would do it for that. Then I'm like, okay, you know, 4 hours is $200. If I do $200 an episode, now I can at least know for a fact that I will have the video, right? So the first lesson was in how to use the cameras. The second lesson was how much editing is involved, you know? I'm not a fast editor. I'm working in Final Cut Pro. I didn't even know how to like make compound clips. And for workflow, right, just to let you know, basically, so I had the Apollo Solo, hooked up, and I have a Logic file open. Again, that's what I'm comfortable in because it's audio, right? So I go, okay, testing, we're recording audio, cool. Then I would open up OBS and then bam, we're recording video. And then when it's done, right, the process is as follows. I go into Logic and I mix the audio. And I'm not great at audio mixing. That's one of the things that I traditionally have hired other people to do. And I've had the benefit of working with really, really incredible mixing engineers. And my mentor is a mastering engineer. Shout out Dave Kutch. So I've, you know, but I know the fundamentals of mixing. I know that you go, okay, get a little EQ on the voice, get a little compression on the voice, get a little limiter, cool, now it sounds loud and clean. Then I export that file and then I drag it into Final Cut Pro, and I'm pretty good at syncing audio. Just one little funny story. During the pandemic, my wife and I were in a one-bedroom apartment in Oakland, and you know, anyone who had the privilege to be locked inside during the pandemic and not have to be outside working knows that it's fucking, you know, it's, you better like the person, right? We were like trapped, right? And, you know, we get along very well. We've been married 5 years. But there was a day where she was like, Chris, I can't with the TV on all the day. I need you to just like, it's loud and I want to watch TV. I mean, she wanted to read a book and I wanted to watch TV. So what I did was I found the show on Netflix that I wanted to watch and found it also on my phone. And then I put my headphones in with the Netflix thing on my phone. And then I went to the TV and my phone at the same time. And I went 3, 2, 1, click. And I got the TV playing and the TV on my phone playing, perfectly synced, muted the TV. And then I could walk around the house and I would be able to see my show. But I was hearing the dialogue here and she could be quiet, whatever, reading her book, being a real artist. And I could be like binging Netflix or whatever. So I'm pretty good at audio syncing. It's annoying, but I get a satisfaction out of it, right? So that's the first thing that I have to do. I have to take the mixed audio, because the OBSBot camera, they do have like a little microphone, but you can't put that on the internet. I guess you could, but I'm not going to, because the one thing I care about more than anything is how things sound. That's my primary sense that I use. So I have to then match the audio so that it syncs. Then I detach the audio from the original file, create a compound clip, which, by the way, I only learned how to make a compound clip like a day ago. Before, I was like, you know, basically I had a separate audio file, separate video file, and my edits were like, everything was like a millimeter off, and it was the horrors. So From there, I'm like, okay, now that I have video with the audio that I mixed, now I can do my edit, right? And then the audio that goes to Spotify is actually from Final Cut. This was like kind of a revelation to me. I thought I was going to have to, you know, I would actually prefer to be doing it from Logic because then I have a little more control. But again, if you go on this journey with me, dog, like a lot of it is about me letting go of perfectionist shit. So anyway, I'm stressed. Talking about this shit is stressful because it's been stress. But export file from Final Cut, and then you go audio only, and then it will export a WAV file, and that's what I bring to Spotify, right? Then the next thing is obviously the thing with the video, and that's what goes on YouTube, and that's where I cut my clips from for socials. So that's essentially the process. One thing that I've been doing is kind of I've been trying to time things where I'm like, okay, well, I don't have a job right now, right? This is my job right now, but this might it might never monetize, or maybe it monetizes in, my goal is a year. I would love to be making money from the podcast in a year. I also started my Patreon right away. Usually people don't start their Patreon till like they kind of have a vibe going. I was just like, let me get it started. You know, the Patreon subscribers are my wife, my friend Far, and I think that my mom, literally. My wife, my mom, my homie. You know what I'm saying? $14 a month, whatever. But the point of that was that I wanted to get into the rhythm of going every Friday, a free episode comes out. Every Monday, an audio-only Patreon episode comes out. So there's kind of 2 episodes a week. I hope I don't regret this format, but like, you know, I think TrueAnon, what they do is they do every other episode is free. So that's why when you look at my shit on the Chris Gabo podcast playlist, it basically goes, you know, episode 3, episode 5, episode, you know, well, actually right now it's only 3 and 5 because my last one, or 1 and 3, excuse me, because my episode 5, the video fucked up. Anyway, so that's the business model. Really, ideally, I would like to, I see people, Chapo Trap House, who you might not know them, they make $100,000 a month. That's real money, and I'm sure they split it 3 ways or some shit like that, but we're talking about real money, right? So my ideal thing would be to not have ads, because I hate podcasts with ads. Obviously, there's a way to do it, but yeah, my ideal thing would be to have a Patreon-only subscriber-based business, because that's the other thing. The 2 reasons that I'm doing this. Number 1 is to create a pathway for people to be excited about the music, right? But I'm not going to tease new music until we have like real listeners. But the other reason is that I need a business that is not based in Hollywood. I think, look, I want to work in Hollywood for the rest of my life, inshallah, right? But I don't have a cushion. I don't have another thing, right? So I was like, I need to start building a subscriber-based business, right? So that's why I was like, start the Patreon right away, right? One of the learning curves that has been kicking my ass is that I actually like kind of have it down on how to like record a video podcast live and then turn that into audio. But in terms of like, I tried to do the first audio only that was based on Zoom, where the guest was on in New York, and that went terribly, and it really sucks because, well, the interview went great because my homie is incredible, but I actually stopped us at 45 minutes because I could sense that something was gonna go wrong, and I couldn't. Her audio didn't work. My shit, it just. I'm gonna figure that one out. But one of the things that I recommend to anyone trying to start anything is like write down how many hours it takes you start to finish, right? I think right now basically every episode kind of takes me like 10 to 12 hours. And another thing I had to figure out was how to do a solo episode. So far the only solo episode is on Patreon. And that was interesting because I had to treat it more like radio, which is what I do anyway. You know what I mean? Like the word podcast kind of offended my sensibilities at the beginning, and I had to like really you start using the word broadcast, start using the word sermon, start thinking about like what are the actual touch points of communication that are cool to me. And I'm like, yeah, radio, TV, you know what I'm saying? So anyway, every episode I think probably takes me 10 to 12 hours start to finish. And I've seen the most social growth on TikTok. The Instagram reels, everything's stuck around like, I don't know, 200-300 views. In TikTok, I was able to get out of like the 200 view jail. Now they're getting like 600, something like that. And then my homie encouraged me to also kind of do what I'm doing here, but a shorter form, like talking about the process of making a podcast. Those stayed at 600, but my last couple didn't. For some reason, they went back into the 200 view jail. So that's where I'm at there. I started uploading the YouTube shorts. My goal is to really get the YouTube shit popping. And I just want to like show you guys what my plan is for the new year. And then, basically I realized through talking to my friend Reef that the Apollo Solo, which is that market rate is like $879, $900, something like that. He was like, this is overkill. You don't need this Apollo. You're not even a mixing engineer, right? You should sell that and get something that is going to be, well, first of all, I also have this Scarlett Solo Focusrite. So when I travel to New York next week to record the episodes there, I'm going to bring the Focusrite. I'm going to bring the SM58. I'm going to bring the OBSBots, and I'm going to bring an SM57, right? And 2 XLR cables, right? But what I'm planning on getting in the new year is the Mackie DLZ Content Creator Studio, because I want to be able to like dance all horn sound, put the Chris Gabo drop, put the theme song and whatever, and I will make a video reporting the first time I use it because I think it's going to be a game changer. But in order to afford that, I have to sell the Apollo Solo. I have the Apollo Solo in the box, so my goal is to get. I put it on Craigslist a couple of days ago for $777, thinking like maybe the funny price would get people to whatever. To be honest, I'd probably take $700. I'd probably take $600. I know if I went to Guitar Center, I'd be like $500. But now we're like degrading in value. And the Mackie DLZ costs something like $800. But I've seen it on Reverb for like $500, $600. So depending on when I sell the Apollo, I will be able to. I'll be able to make up the difference, right? But that's a huge move because the Mackie DLZ content creator thing, which by the way has like great reviews everywhere, the idea is that you're not even recording directly onto the computer. You can record onto an SD card and you're live mixing. So it cuts, like I don't have to go in and add the theme song in Logic. You know what I'm saying? I could be like, boom, 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 boom. Here's the theme song. Here's the drop. And also it solves the problem for remote guests because there's a Bluetooth feature where essentially like if, oops, let me fucking... Jesus Christ. That was my fucking driver's license. I'm still figuring some shit out, clearly. When people call in, it just immediately routes the audio in. And so then it's all in the box, and that's going to bring my workload down significantly. My next goal is to basically get some sort of budget together to pay someone to shoot the video. Again, I like so far I can picture spending $200 a week, and then inshallah I'll get another TV job, and then I can start putting, pay someone $500 a day to edit. I know that most editors, real editors charge $700 to $800 a day. And up, obviously, like fancy editors can charge whatever the fuck they want, but the guys that I know charge like $700 to $800. I'm gonna see if I can talk to one of my homies and get a homie rate and be like, "Yo, what could you do for $500?" And that editing day, first of all, they just work faster than me, right? And what I'm gonna tell them is essentially like, "Yo, the first 4 hours, just cut to," because look, if it's an 8-hour day and you're taking an hour lunch, right? 4 hours, if the episodes are 90 minutes to 2 hours, especially when we're going to do the cast shows. That's the other reason why I got the DLZ Mackie, or I'm going to get the DLZ Mackie, is because I need more XLR inputs. because I want to be able to, the thing, I saw someone describe the Joe Budden podcast the other day in this like tech forum, and they said the Joe Budden podcast is a combination of reality TV and talk show. And I was like, yes, the best pre-production is 20 years of friendship. And that's what I learned doing all these episodes with my homies. So I think that there is a reality TV component to it. There is a talk radio component to it. And it's very important to have more XLR inputs. Obviously, at one point, I'm going to have to change the mics out, but that is not a financial prospect that I can, I get stressed even thinking about it. So in the new year, when I get back, I am going to try to turn it really into a cast show, and then hopefully get someone to start editing. And again, back to sort of how I think of breaking up the editing day. I'm like, if the episode's 2 hours, let's say, in a 4-hour day, I mean, I'm sure that a real editor has a process where they're like, yo, I have to watch all the footage. But for me, I'm like, you don't have to. I mean, just the way I would do it is as you're doing it, all I don't need it to be art. I just need it to be when I talk, get my shit. When they talk, get their shit. That's all I need. Add the logo, transition or whatever, and I'll probably provide that. Because the reason why I'm truncating that day, right now, I am not successfully getting shit onto YouTube. It's not happening. Because it's not a guarantee that when I film that there's not going to be a lag. So number one, we just need to get it out on YouTube. The second half of that day is I need an editor to edit these social clips. Ideally, 10 would be ideal. Can someone edit 10 social clips in 4 hours? I don't know. Some social clips take me an hour to edit. Some social clips, if they're just if I'm not having to create the back and forth conversation, it doesn't take an hour. It takes 10 minutes or whatever. I just put the little logo and whatever. And maybe I'm asking too much. Maybe 10 is too much. Ideally, but the thing is on TikTok, you want to put out 2 or 3 videos a day. Instagram, I think also it's helpful to put out 2 videos a day, but my Instagram videos aren't really going anywhere. But yeah, that's basically the goal. I hope this video is helpful. I can't believe I talked for this long. More soon. I'm going to go edit out my driver's license.